The big bad kaiju tug-of-war battle is finally over in this week's episode of Naruto Shippuden, which also means we're done with the flashbacks, at least until the middle of this week's episode. This was a near-perfect one for me. Aside from the flashbacks, I loved all the new material here. In fact, I loved the atmosphere of this week's episode a lot. It really made great use of Naruto Shippuden's moody soundtrack. Not only that, but we got to finally see the return of all the Bijou, and Naruto had this great scene at the very end of the episode where he runs up to the top of the God Tree and activates a massive Rasen Shuriken as he's getting ready to go into the battle with Madara Uchiha. So this was a really good episode. So let's just talk about some of the highlights. Loved the scene at the very beginning of the episode where Naruto and Obito are still in that weird, bluey, starry world. And I especially love the scene where it looks like they're about to finally shake hands. Obito chokes him, and then Naruto just decks him in the face. It's a really badass scene, but I especially love the symbolism behind it, because as soon as Obito looks back, he actually sees that he was punched by a younger version of himself, and that's when he's swept to this weird genjutsu-like world, where he sees visions of his teammates. First, the real versions, and then the versions which are him transformed into these even creepier versions of Ren. You know, the one that does that weird, creepy side tilt thing? That's really messed up. But what's really great about the scene, and I was thinking about it when I was reading the manga as well, is this is basically what Obito would have done if the Infinite Tsukiyomi would have gone through for him. He would have basically created these puppet versions of all the people that he cared about. And it's both creepy, disturbing, and sad at the same time, the way he sort of views his old teammates and how he just can't let that go. And then eventually he finally goes back to the real world, and Naruto is there still trying to get him to come back, and he finally decides that he's going to join, because Naruto has seen everything within his heart. He knows exactly what he feels, and even though he's trying to come up with lies about trying to become stronger and wanting to become the Hokage of his own world, it's just not going to cut the mustard. And that's finally when we cut back to the actual battle. We get to see all the different members of the Shinobi Alliance, all the important characters, all the side characters. It literally takes the entire alliance to pull out this Bijuu's chakra, and I love this scene because it actually makes the Shinobi Alliance seem more important. It literally requires this many people to make this happen, and I especially love when all of the Bijou finally leave Obito's body, how they slowly materialize and slam on the ground all monstrous-like. It's really great. I would have liked a little more face time with these characters, although that is going to come in next week's episode, although I do appreciate that one scene where Shukaku does remember that he did fight with Naruto and Gamabunta back in the day, and I love Shukaku. I think he has one of the biggest personalities out of all the Bijou, and that's mostly because we got to see a lot of his craziness during that battle when he's just constantly screaming into the sky, pounding his stomach like a madman. I just love Shukaku. He's so great. And maybe it's just me, but it almost seemed like back in that first part of the series when Shukaku was fighting against Naruto and Gamabunta, it almost seemed like he was a lot bigger than he was. It almost seems to me like the Bijou used to be a lot bigger, and now they almost seem a little smaller. Maybe that's just me, I don't know, I can't really tell. But the rest of the episode is basically everybody getting ready to fight against Madara, and of course Sasuke looking like he's going to try and assassinate Obito. That is until Kakashi appears out of nowhere, tries to stab him with a kunai, and then frickin' Minato just appears out of nowhere and stops him from killing him. And this is a really big moment between them because they finally sort of squash all of their bullshit, and I really can't do the episode any justice because it's basically cut in between the scene of Naruto running up to the top of the Ten Tails tree, and he's getting ready to form this massive Rasen Shuriken as he goes into the battle against Madara, which, whew, I cannot wait to see that stuff. That stuff's going to be a lot of fun. I will say, though, that this week's episode was still really good despite all of the flashbacks. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Naruto Shippuden? The flashbacks are over. Rejoice, drink a beer. This was a pretty good episode. It really caught me by surprise. It will be a little slow for some people, like the scene where they finally go to the tug-of-war and they show all the individual members of the Shinobi Alliance, but I like it. It really shows you how many people are involved in this war, and it just makes the scale seem all that much more epic. I also loved the return of the Bijou themselves. I just love the design of those characters, and I especially love the goofy scene where you see them all standing together, and then you have Chomei in the back, whose wings are constantly fluttering, and it's just very irritating, I'm sure, to the other Bijou. And of course, like I said, Shukaku's back. I love Shukaku. Just something about the big, monstrous mutant, like raccoon or tanuki, whatever the hell he's supposed to be. And I can't wait for next week's episode too, because it's going to be Gaara-centric. And, you know, Gaara is definitely one of the more favorite characters of the series. If I had a top 20 list, he would most definitely be on it. He couldn't break into my top 10. Speaking of which, if you guys want to see that, that's still on the channel. Yeah, self-promotion at its best. What I also really liked about this episode, like I said, is just the music cues. Every single one was really effective, especially the scene where Obito had all of the Bijou chakra extracted from his body, and he was standing at the bottom of this pit and looking into the sky, covering up the moon with his hand. Just, that was a very effective scene, and it was handled really well. And just a lot of the animation this week was pretty decent. There were moments where it was a little sloppy, but there were moments that I liked, and they could have made the artwork a little better in some moments. But for the most part, this was a pretty high-quality episode of the series, which was only hampered by a few flashbacks. It had a little bit of epicness, the return of some classic characters, and it looks like Obito has finally been defeated. So, let's just enjoy this one for what it is. Like I said, not perfect, but still a really stellar episode, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 this week. I just really liked this episode a lot, and you should definitely check it out if you're a fan of Naruto or Naruto Shippuden. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And before you go, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Naruto Shippuden. What did you feel about it? Did you think it was too slow? Did you hate the flashbacks? Or did you think it was just a really well done atmospheric setup episode? And all the Bijou are back. Which one is your favorite? Remember guys, before you leave, make sure and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. You can do that by clicking on our channel icon right up here. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And just a reminder guys, we are reviewing the One Piece manga series now. So make sure to check out a link for one of our reviews at the very end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.